'Tis I. Hey everyone, glad to see you back, glad to see you looking fresh, and today is the day I finally talk about Dragon Ball GT. This has been a show that's been a long time coming for me. It's not a show that I was looking forward much to watching, I'm gonna be real with you. I watched OG Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super in a very short amount of time a few years back. I loved all three of them. And GT felt like this weird offshoot that wasn't required, it didn't feel important. And the reason I decided to go back and finally view it was the game coming out with Sparking Zero. There could be elements from GT in that game. And already in certain Dragon Ball games, there are GT characters and stages and references that I don't understand. Or didn't understand, I should say. So I wanted to catch up. I wanted to watch the 64 episode run of GT and be able to understand like who these characters are, what the storylines were, who like what Super Saiyan 4 is, because I knew of that one obviously, but the rest of anything really in GT was a complete nothing to me. It is the strangest show in terms of Dragon Ball history. I think the plot beats and the major story elements of it aren't talked about in the same light as the other ones. I think it can relate the most to original Dragon Ball, where a lot of the storylines, obviously, Dragon Ball fans are very, very famous, but to the general public, not as much. You know, I think the general public understands, like, Frieza and even Cell and Buu, like, these characters as a whole people get. Vegeta especially, so, like, you have your four big sagas contained in those. And with Super, sure, a lot of the stuff, it's just because it's newer, and so people have been watching it in a more modern time. But even like Tournament of Power, stuff with Beerus and Whis, like all that stuff is decently knowledgeable in the general public. But with GT, like, if you ask someone what Super Baby is in Dragon Ball, then I have no idea. Unless they've seen GT, of course. And Super Baby is the best arc. You want to call it a saga? I guess you can call it a saga. It's 20 episodes. It's the longest, quote-unquote, saga of this show. It's the best one. And I guess we'll start with our foot on the right way. That's not how that saying goes. We'll start with the right foot forward. And what's the phrase? We'll start on the right foot. That's it. And we'll start with Super Baby 2. This saga is, like I said, the best. It has the best villain. And it has the most amount of characters that we know and love. Who would have thought, like, if we include characters that we know and love in this show, maybe it'll be better than what it was. And it's just really, 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 really strong. Especially, like, after... It's hard to talk about the first one first. So I guess I'm all over the place already. So I guess we'll go back and touch on the Black Star Ball arc. Is that what we're calling it? So the Black Star Dragon Balls make no sense. Their backstory, their reasoning for what they do, all of it's completely plot related and nothing to do with actual like history of Dragon Ball. And I don't like them, and they're silly. Pilaf, which is kind of fun that he's the one that kicks this whole thing off, much like the original wishes. Accidentally for Goku to be a kid again, the Dragon Balls spread across the galaxy and or universe. People say different things every time. So, universe, I guess, technically counts to cover both of those. It's just a very small part of the universe, if that's the case. But then it kicks off this, what should be, really fun, exciting trip around to different planets and finding the Dragon Balls. Harkening back to the original Dragon Ball and searching for those. What we get, though, is about 6 episodes of that, and then a completely bogged down disaster where some of the Dragon Balls get captured, and then we're stuck with a bunch of blue people, and the blue people are working with these robots and androids, and they all weirdly look the same for having the most amount of creativity you can do. You're designing aliens. You can make them look however you want. So many of these guys look the same, which is silly. But there's these little dancing guys that are just a knockoff Ginyu Force, and they're working for a knockoff Dr. Gero, and there's a million different people in between those, including one guy that likes dolls way too much. So we're going to skim past that. But I liked a couple of the episodes before we got into all that stuff. I liked the episodes with like the big catfish guy. I thought those were kind of fun. I thought that Capitalism Planet had some okay ideas going. I thought Giru was a fun little character that they brought into the fold. Like, all that stuff was fine, and then they said the show really just started dragging its feet big time, and I hated it. I was like, this is the worst. Like, how can people say this is better than Super? How can people say that they love this? Nostalgia. That's the answer to that. But I was like, this is awful. This is really boring. It's not like on paper like that bad. It's just so boring to watch. And then the offshoot Dr. Gero has this little tuffle thing called Baby. And then Baby comes to Earth, and the show gets a million times better because we actually include more characters than just Goku, Pan, and Trunks. Which, when the show first started, I was like, alright, Goku, obviously everyone's favorite. Pan is a fun character because we don't see a lot of Pan in Dragon Ball history, so that's interesting. A lot of people complain about Pan. A lot of people were saying she's the worst part of the show, the reason the show sucks, the reason that nobody likes it, and I'm like, she is not the problem in the show. Yeah, she can be a little annoying at times. Yeah, she can cause some issues, but I like her well enough. She's fun and cute and adventurous and wants to be like her granddad, and it's not a bad character. Like, she's just a kid. Bulma was also bratty and could be annoying and full of herself as well. People like to forget that. People also like to say Bulma is useless. So I guess, that's the kind of people we're dealing with here, but she is not the issue. Trunks isn't much better than she is either. Like, I think people just have this nostalgic fondness for Trunks, future Trunks especially, but this Trunks is, like, fine. He's not amazing, he's not great, he's not horrible, he's, like, whatever. I've never really liked Trunks that much anyways, so I'm pretty indifferent to him. But yeah, the Baby arc includes, like, Goten has a cool part in this, and I really like that. Gohan gets a little bit of a play, Vegeta gets a huge play because he's the one that, I guess, spoilers for this, he gets overtaken by Baby and becomes like a vessel for evil, which he's done before, but last time it was by his own volition. This time it was not by his own choice, and he's basically used as like a mech suit. And then he turned into a big golden Ozaru for whatever reason. He didn't have a tail. But whatever, who cares? Who cares about that? That's the show's biggest issue. The show's biggest issue is not the fact that it's boring. It's not the fact that some of the plot lines don't make any sense. It's the reason that, like, things happen in the show for plot reasons, and they don't give a great explanation as to how or to why. Like, for instance, at this point, the Earth is set to explode. So they're on a remade planet Vegeta, because the Tuffles were a race that were taken over by the Saiyans, and their planet was stolen and turned into Planet Vegeta. So Baby remade Planet Vegeta to be able to have his planet back, I guess. Found enough reasoning for all that in story. I might have had a bad time explaining it there. But for some reason the Earth works as the moon, so Goku can turn into an Ozaru, and I'm like, that's silly. After a really terrible scene of him getting his tail pulled out, like, it's ridiculous. But yeah, after the Baby stuff, there's a couple more arcs already, even though Baby ends on, like, episode, 40-ish. There's, 2 more arcs in the next, 24 episodes. The next arc includes Hell and actual Dr. Gero and Android 17, and it doesn't make much sense, but Android 17 fuses with Android 17 to make Super Android 17, who, design-wise is okay, power-wise is okay, but, story-wise is silly. What includes some 18 stuff, and everyone loves 18, we don't get enough of her, so there's a mild positive for that. But then after that, the final arc includes the Dragon Balls breaking, because they've been used so much, and every ball turns into a smaller dragon, who remembers the wish that caused their ball to fill up with energy, and because there's so much energy, and the Dragon Balls were designed to be wished upon once every 100 years or so, even though they're charged up and ready to go after a year. Again, a little bit of a okay, sure, I guess kind of thing. At least they have a reason for this one. But the dragons were cool. The idea to use the Dragon Balls as the final villain in all of Dragon Ball was clever. I'll give it the benefit there for sure. That little adventure where it's pretty much a monster of the week type thing. Some of them take 2 episodes, but defeating a dragon, meeting another dragon, defeating them. Some of them are way cooler than others. One of them, the 4-star ball, becomes a little sidekick almost to Goku in the final fight. And that's pretty sick. Honestly, if they want to include that dragon in other games, if they want to include that in Sparking Zero, that'd be sick as well. But I really liked him. And of course, like Super Saiyan 4, I guess we'll talk about that. That's like the big thing that everyone talks about. Is used to take on Omega Shenron, who's the final boss in all of Dragon Ball, who's like this evil, walking, talking Shenron. Not like the set. He looks a little different. They're connected, but not the same, if that makes any sense. Super Saiyan 4 looks... Some people love it. People love the design. I don't. I think it's a little bit too much. A little bit too different. I don't understand how Goku can turn into it from a kid into the adult form, when the rest of them don't do that. So you're saying if like Pan did it, she would turn into an adult Pan, even though we've never had adult Pan, or is it because Goku's an adult and just cursed, and the Super Saiyan 4 is so powerful it breaks the curse? I've heard that explanation before, and that makes sense, but I don't think they say that in the show. It's a bit much. It's a bit too leading into the whole monkey thing, and it like if they need a tail for it, then it's like why? Because the other forms don't need a tail. I don't know why it loses the yellow hair. I don't know why all of a sudden the color scheme is like this pinkish thing. You keep your regular color hair and you get eyeliner. You get this like coat. You lose your clothes, which is another weird one. I don't know. There's a lot of like design things I'm not a huge fan of with it. Power wise, it basically works as like a win button in this show. If you're not Super Saiyan 4, you're gonna lose. Which basically means that Goku has to win every fight once he gains the power, or it's useless. Every other character feels useless because of it until Vegeta finally gets the power. And it doesn't make much sense how he gets it either. It's a nice moment between he and Bulma when he's figuring out how to get it, but overall it doesn't make much sense how he can get it. The fusion in the Gogeta Super Saiyan 4 is awesome. He's great. Everyone knows that Gogeta 4 is incredible. He's not around very long, but he is awesome. I think I hit everything I wanted to hit upon with this show. I had a lot to say about it. I also feel like I can say nothing at all at the same time. It's not a show that is required, but I mean that it's filler. It feels like filler a lot of the time, and even then some episodes feel more like filler than others. If you want to see it and you haven't seen it, I think it's probably worth it. Some of the episodes are really bad. Some of the episodes are really, really boring, and you need to understand that going into it. But to just know the full story of Dragon Ball, maybe you love Oob and you want to see more of him. He's in the show more, not a lot, because of course it's a Goku always kind of show, and if you're not Super Saiyan 4 Goku, you're not winning the fight. So, but Oob is in it more. Other characters are in it more. It does forget about a lot of them. I saw this post that people were like, that made me very annoyed. And I understand online fans. I mean, I say that everyone here is an online fan, but you get me. Like those types were saying that like GT is the best one because it remembers Dragon Ball history, and that is far from the truth. That is far from the truth. It happily forgets history all the time just to put random cool things from its history and use them without any reasoning, any like backstory, any purpose. And I'm just like, how can people say like, oh yeah, it remembers, it just forgets a ton of characters. Like so many times, like Zenzu beans could have fixed the problem, and they're just never mentioned once as to why they can't use them. And characters like Korn and Yajirobe are never mentioned at all because of that. Characters like Yamcha and Tien and Chaozu are just never talked about. Some characters that are like more newer in the Z saga, Mr. Satan gets a lot of play, Boo and like Videl and them are in it more because of that. But there's just a ton of characters. Master Roshi is barely in this. That just are nothing. They're non-existent, and it's so annoying to see like, you like GT, that's great. Don't give a reason as to why you like it. That's not true. For the first third of the show, they're not even on Earth. So how on Earth can you be like, yeah, it remembers Dragon Ball history, and that's what it... Oh, it's... And then for the last third, they might as well be off Earth. They're in hell for like 10 episodes. Getting a lot worked up. Anyways, GT, not my favorite thing in the world. Happy to have finally seen it. Happy to have checked it off my watch list and say I have the knowledge of it, the characters, the world that it creates, and to say goodbye to Goku, which did almost tear me up. The ending was the best ending of any series of Dragon Ball, mostly because it's a clip show. The two best episodes in this are a clip show. That one and the one about Vegeta and his history. are the best episodes because they're clip shows of Z. So there's that. That's the best note to end on. But have you seen GT? Do you like GT? Do you not like GT? By all means, let me know down below. That'll about do it for me today. Thank you so very much for watching. And as always, like this if you like this, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you at some point.